What is up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Hi, hello. If you are new here, let's introduce ourselves. I'll start. My name is Chase. I play with my hair too much. I need a haircut, and I'm a hot mess. Yes. So hi, it's nice to meet you. Do the introduction in the comments below. If you want to subscribe, I do paranormal videos every Saturday. Then subscribe to my channel, and then you join the Hot Mess Express. That's your ticket, your lifetime ticket. Get on, and this train goes full steam ahead, and it makes several stops. So if you have to pee a lot, you can get off and go pee, move your legs, get a drink, get something to eat. So, how are you guys? Last week was my first week back from my little, hiatus where I just ghosted you guys, and we talked about true crime. That was me dabbling my hand in true crime. I said in the video last week, I don't think I'm gonna do it all the time. It's not really like my cup of tea. It's not something I enjoy. However, it wasn't horrible. And we talked about the abduction of Chloe Ayling, a model in London. So if you are interested in true crime and you want to hear about that story, then go check out the video. I'll leave it linked in the description box down below. But today, I am very excited because last week was kind of like an introduction, like welcome back, just to see. I tried this new editing style, and I have like a different setup, kind of, that's a little better. And so it was just me kind of trying out some new stuff, and I think it worked out really well. So, today, oh my god, my hair. So today, it's the official first episode of Spooky Saturday Season 2. Also, if I keep looking this way, sorry, I don't know why I'm doing that. I don't know why. It's the first official episode of Spooky Saturdays Season 2, and I'm excited. I did a poll on Instagram and Facebook, so if you don't follow me on there, go follow me. I picked out 16 of the most haunted places and in the world, by the way. And then you guys got to pick out of that what you wanted to see. And that's what we're doing today. I'm very excited to go on this journey. This place that we're talking about today scared me. It scared me to research and everything. I did this research last night. I was afraid to be home alone. So my mom is home. However, she's not going to be home for forever. So we'll see how I do. You guys picked for the very first episode, Myrtles Plantation. Yes. So let's jump into it. So I almost forgot album of the week. So last week's album of the week was an Ally and AJ album. I'm obsessed with Ally and AJ. Last week's album of the week was Into the Rush, and it is an amazing album, absolutely amazing. And this week's album of the week is, can you guess? Insomniatic by Ally and AJ. It's their second album. It's a breakup album, and I really want to know who hurt them. Like, who did you guys wrong for you to make this album? Because it's pretty much a breakup album. And of course, the songs like Whoa are on it, and potential breakup song. So it's a bop. Go listen to it. I promise you won't regret it. And if you listen to it when you were a child, then it'll definitely take you back to your childhood. So real quick, while we're on album of the week, can we talk about this Joshua, Olivia, and Sabrina drama that's going on? If you don't know about it, Google it. Long story short, Josh and Olivia were on a show together. They were dating but not dating, and then he, I guess, left her for Sabrina Carpenter. And so she released a song called Driver's License, which is about Joshua, and allegedly also about Sabrina, but not really about Sabrina, but kind of. And then a week later, Joshua released his own song called Lie, Lie, Lie. And even though he said he wrote it 2 years ago, it kind of sounds like it's about Olivia. And then Sabrina, just last night, because I'm filming this on Friday, January 22nd. So earlier this morning, whatever. released a song called Skin, which is about Olivia, and I mean, it's about her, because it's like, maybe Blonde was the only word that rhymed. Girl, I'm not gonna lie, Joshua's song isn't good. It's like any generic song. Olivia, Driver's License, girl, everyone already knows that song's good. And actually, Skin is really good too. So, just wanted to throw that out there because of the drama of it all. Yeah, Back to Myrtles Plantation. Myrtles Plantation is located in St. Francisville, Louisiana, and it was built in 1796 by General David Bradford. So this building is a very old building, and it has a lot of history to it. So we're going to be here in the history section for a while. And this is like a condensed version of the history. This is not even all of it. Like, I couldn't do all of it if I wanted to. It's so much. Also, I really want to shout out, like they need me to shout them out. But I got most of my information today from the podcast And That's Why We Drink. If you haven't heard of it, you should go listen to it. It's a true crime and paranormal podcast. One of the hosts does true crime, and she's really into wine, so she is team wine. And then the other one is really into milkshakes and paranormal. It's a very, very good podcast, and I recommend you go listen to it. So Bradford is actually an interesting person because he was a very prominent figure in the Whiskey Rebellion. And the way that he got Myrtles Plantation is a very fascinating story. So Bradford was living in Pennsylvania during the Whiskey Rebellion. So this is when George Washington was president. We're all the way back in time now. Come follow me. And George Washington sent 13,000 troops to Pennsylvania to arrest rebels. And so they got there, and that's what they started doing instantly. Anyone who was rebelling against the tax on whiskey was getting arrested. Well, Bradford was kind of like, I don't say he was like the head of it, but he was definitely someone who was very vocal about this. And he was kind of, I mean, I guess I would say I view him as like a face of the Whiskey Rebellion and the push for it, right? So Bradford escapes, and there's, I guess, like a humongous story about him escaping where he like jumps out of a second floor window and he gets on his horse and he rides away with them chasing him, and then he gets to the Ohio River and there's like a shootout overnight and he escapes and all that. Allegedly, that's not true. Really, I guess what actually happened is he just leisurely left on his horse and he escaped to what is now Portsmouth, Ohio, before hopping on a boat and traveling down the Ohio River, and eventually he ended up in Spanish West Florida, which is today known as Louisiana. And it's actually, to be more specific, it is New Orleans. So it's Spanish West Florida was Louisiana, but more specifically, he stayed in what is now New Orleans. And what I just find interesting is that George Washington had a personal manhunt out for David Bradford. So he didn't have like troops and stuff after David Bradford. I mean, he did. He had troops after him. But George Washington himself was also after David Bradford. Like, he was coming for his neck. He was not playing games with Bradford today. So anyway, Bradford gets to Louisiana, and I don't know how he had the money to do this. He must have been rich or something. But he builds what was Myrtles Plantation. It was an 8-house mansion. It wasn't originally called Myrtles Plantation. He called it Laurel's Grove. Now, I don't know why he called it that. I don't know. That's what it was originally called. And he lived there until 1799. So he fled in... Well, I didn't write that down. He built this in 1796 and lived there until 1799 by himself, until he eventually was pardoned by President John Adams. And that is when he went back to Pennsylvania because he hadn't went back to that whole time, and he left his family and everything, and he had to, because if he didn't, he was going to be arrested. So he hadn't went back to Pennsylvania this whole time, hadn't seen his family or anything. So when he's finally pardoned, he goes back to Pennsylvania, and he gets his wife and 5 kids, and they all move to Laurel's Grove in Louisiana. So since this place was such a big place, not only was David Bradford and his wife Elizabeth living there, they also had their 5 children, and they housed law students there because David Bradford was a lawyer. So he had a very big interest, and there's a special place in his heart for law students and law school. So he allowed people, kids going to law school, to stay at Laurel's Grove for free. And many law students came and went, but the most noticeable one, the one that's like the most known, is Clark Woodruff. And he is most known because, like I said, he was a law student, and he was staying at the plantation when he met Bradford's daughter, Sarah, and they fell in love. If I keep looking down, I say this in every video, but I just want people to know, I have notes. Like, I don't sit there and like study this and read it off like a script, because I feel like that's, hello. But I feel like that's unnatural for me to memorize all of it and then read it like I'm reading a script. That's not my tea. That's not for me. But anyway, Clark and Sarah meet and they fall in love, and then they get married. Now, Clark is not the best guy, and we'll get into that. But originally, they didn't know that. So, Clark and Sarah were happy. And I believe they lived on the plantation even after they got married. So we're going to fast forward a little bit. Like I said, I had to cut out a lot of history because this building has so much history. And I really recommend you going and looking up even more of it because it's interesting and it has a lot. And it was really interesting to research. And I had to cut out quite a bit. That way this video, it's probably already going to be 40 minutes long. So imagine if I didn't cut this stuff out. Okay. So fast forward, and David passes away, and he leaves the plantation to his wife, Elizabeth. And she runs it for a few years. And then in 1817, she hands the plantation over to Clark. So Clark is running the plantation with Sarah, and they end up having 3 kids. And the names are like some of the oddest names I've ever heard. They have Mary Octavia. Okay, that one's not too bizarre, right? Africa Gale. And then James. Poor James. So yeah, Africa Gale, Mary Octavia, and then James. That's it. That's his name. Imagine your sisters having those like crazy unique names, and they're like, we're gonna call you James. So then fast forwarding a little bit to 1823 and 1824, tragedy strikes the family. This is in the middle of the yellow fever pandemic that was going on, and James and Africa both get sick from yellow fever, and then shortly after that they do pass away. And then shortly after they pass away, Sarah comes down with yellow fever, and she also passes away. And this happened between 1823 and 1824. So just in like 2 years, 3 of the family members pass away. And then after that, in 1831, fast forwarding again, Elizabeth Bradford, David's wife, also passes away. Before I continue, I'm going to do mascara off camera. Okay, she's back. It's really weird because like I have winter stuff over here, my screensaver is winter, and then I have Pumpkin Donut Shop as my candle. I don't want to buy any more candles until I burn the ones that I have, but I only have fall scents. So I'm like burning this one and Pumpkin Pecan Waffle. And it's weird because it's January, but I'm burning fall scents. I don't know. So after Sarah, James, and Africa pass away, Clark decides that he wants to move because the memories of the property just aren't good anymore. And that'd be hard to live in the place where your wife and 2 kids passed away. So he moves him and Mary away from the plantation. I forget where. And Clark hires a caretaker to keep up with the plantation and just kind of take care of it. Hence the name caretaker. Okay, so you've heard all of that. Now we're gonna rewind. We're going back, okay? We're rewinding back. This is when Sarah, James, and Africa are still alive, and they're all a happy family. So before all of that, Clark was allegedly, and I say allegedly because none of this has been proven true, but it also has not been proven false. So Clark was allegedly having an affair with one of the servants that worked at the mansion. Now, this was back in, like I said, the 1800s, so slavery was still a thing. So she was a slave, and I don't know her exact position, but she worked in the house. And now she did not want to have this affair with him, duh. But she was afraid that if she didn't have an affair and go through with all of this, that he would send her to work out in the fields. And she worked in the house, and she didn't want that because that was like the worst thing you could have as a job, is working in the field. So she went along with it. And she was a teenage girl named Chloe. And she will come back into play later. She's a really big part of this story. And even after death, she is the most active ghost at Myrtles Plantation. The most active spirit at Myrtles Plantation. They start having this affair, and remember, Chloe doesn't want to have the affair, but she's scared, so she goes along with it. And I don't know exactly how long the affair went on for. It went on for quite a while. And eventually, Chloe started getting afraid that Clark was not interested in her anymore. He started getting more distant and just wasn't how he was when the whole thing started. And she got afraid that he was getting bored. So since she was getting afraid that he was getting bored with her, she also was afraid that he was going to find someone new to have an affair with. And then she would get sent to the fields. So, since she was afraid of getting sent out to the field and him getting bored, she started eavesdropping in on his conversations to see if he was saying anything about her and about like getting bored and finding someone else. So one day he's in some room, I don't know which room, I don't know, but she is leaning up against the door listening, and he catches her doing this. He opens the door and he finds her just listening. So, as punishment for doing so, he cuts her ear off. And from there on out, for the rest of her life, she wears a green turban to hide the scar and hide her missing ear. On his daughter's birthday, and I'm not sure which daughter, but it was Chloe's job to make her a cake. So Chloe decides she's going to put poison in the cake. Now, there are 2 stories about why she did it. The first reason is she wanted to kill the family for cutting her ear off. She wanted revenge. But the second one says that she again was afraid she was going to get sent out to the field because she still was working in the house. And at this point, she wasn't on good terms with the family. Whoa. She thought that if she put poison into this cake, she would only put a little bit, and then she'd nurse them back to health. They would forgive her. So somehow, I'm not sure exactly how, but the other slaves found out about Chloe's plan. And when they found out, they were afraid that if this did happen, if Chloe did poison the family, and they either got sick or died, but then they found out that all of them knew and didn't say anything, that they would all get in trouble. Does that make sense? I feel like that doesn't make sense. Long story short, they found out and they were afraid that if they didn't do something, they would all get in trouble because they knew about it. So all of the slaves turn on Chloe. And one night, while she is sleeping, they pull her out of bed, they drag her to the field, and they hang her from the tree on the field. And after they hang her, she dies, and then they cut her down. They weigh her body down with rocks, and then they throw her into the river that is on the property. And they do all of this without without the family knowing or asking. And then just the next day they're like, hey, we killed her because she was gonna poison all of you. Now, this story is something kind of an urban legend because that's the most the biggest, the most popular. That's the most popular version of the story. However, there's another version, and it's pretty much the same thing except for Sarah and the two daughters both eat the cake and die. So when I was listening to And That's Why We Drink podcast, and they were at this part where they were talking about the poison cake, they mentioned this thing that skeptics kind of point out, and they felt like it was important to bring up. And I feel that it is also important to bring up, just to kind of, like they said, play devil's advocate. I do want to say I full-heartedly believe that Chloe is there. However, the story does not add up for a few reasons. The first reason being there is no public record that anyone can find of there ever being a Chloe living, staying, working on the Myrtle Plantation property. There is no record of a Chloe, which is kind of odd, right? That's in and of itself is kind of odd. However, a lot of people have seen Chloe, so they don't know. No one really knows for sure. The other thing that makes this story just not add up entirely is that there are public records showing that Sarah and the two kids both died of yellow fever. They couldn't die from cake poisoning because this happened years before Sarah, James, and Africa died from yellow fever. So the stories don't really add up. They don't quite make sense. The only thing that I can think of that would make it make sense is that this did happen, but they didn't end up eating the cake. Like the slaves found out before they ever had the cake, and so they killed Chloe before the cake was even served or anything. That's the only thing I can think of to kind of make this story make sense, because without that, I mean, it kind of really puts a big hole in this whole story. I was blending, I turned my head and I saw a face in my mirror, and I was like, what was that? And it's just my Dolly Parton record. You can't see it, it's up high, but it's my Dolly Parton record. So now that part of the story has been told, we're gonna fast forward again all the way back to like the 1830, when Elizabeth passes away. Clark and Mary move. They give the plantation to a caretaker and tell him to watch over the plantation. And then in 1834, Clark ends up selling the plantation to Ruffin Gray Sterling. And when they sell plantation to Ruffin, him and his wife do a complete remodel of the mansion. They double the size of the mansion, and they rename it Myrtles Plantation. And then they move in. So Ruffin and his wife move in, and they have 9 kids. God, can you believe that? 9 kids. And this place has such a just sad history to it, and there's so much like death. Like for instance, more death. Ruffin and his wife had 9 kids, 5 of which died on the property. So they lived there, and then 20 years later, and I didn't write down the year, but 20 years later, Ruffin ends up passing away from consumption. Why did I sound so happy when I said that? I said, yes, consumption, come on. So once Ruffin passes away, he ends up leaving the plantation to his wife, and then someone else dies on the property. This time it is Ruffin's son, and he is murdered. He dies from a stab wound that he got from a gambling game. So Just a lot of death and a lot of just darkness on this property just from the word go. So I don't think I've said Ruffin's wife's name. Her name's Mary, and Mary was and well, I was going to say was and is, but she's not alive anymore. She was very well respected in the community. Back then, women weren't respected. I mean, like that's just it, period. Men were respected, women were not. Women were viewed as objects for men to marry, have kids with, and cook. That was just the reality. Well, Mary was an exception. So much so that she was respected almost like a man would have been respected. Which back then, I mean, nowadays it's like, oh, wow, that's like, okay. But back then, that was a very big deal. That was a very big deal for her to be that well respected to the point where she had just as much respect as the men in the community. So Mary does eventually pass away, and when she does that, she leaves the house to her daughter and son-in-law, William Winters. And William Winters is another tragic story that happened on this property as well. So I'm telling you all of these deaths, right, and all of these stories and everything that's happened. However, I probably should have said this before, but I forgot. None of those deaths are actually recorded deaths. Like, no one knows what's actually happened or not. They're all just kind of stories that have been passed on throughout the years. William Winters is the only recorded death on the property that is verified it did happen. However, a lot of people say that there have been at least 10 deaths on this property, if not more. So do with that what you will. But William Winters is the only recorded one. So this happened in 1871 when William Winters was teaching Sunday school on the property, and during class, while it was in session, you know, he hears someone from outside yelling his name. They were yelling, they had business they needed to conduct with him. So William Winters goes outside to see who is yelling his name, and the second he goes outside, he gets shot. One of the things I've noticed with this place is that a lot of the history is either skewed and there are a bunch of different stories, or it's all just legends and none of it is actually a fact. It is a fact that William Winters did die on the property. However, there are many stories about what happened. So, one account says that he gets shot and then dies right there on the property. He just collapses and dies, which is probably the most believable. Another story, however, says that he gets shot and he is able to stumble from the place where they're having Sunday school to the porch where his wife has come out, and he then falls on the porch and dies in her arms. That is the second version. The third version is the most popular version. This is a purple highlighter. Anyway, the most popular one is that he gets shot and then he stumbles all the way to the house, inside of the house where his wife is on the top step, and he walks up the top steps. Well, he walks up the steps, and then once he gets to the 17th step, he collapses into his wife's arms and then passes away. That's the most popular one. And the one that was told by people at that time was that he stumbled to the front of like the porch and then died in her arms. But in an article from that time, it says that he just fell and died right where he was shot, which is kind of the more realistic one, but that doesn't go with the ghost story. So after that, his wife and Mary's daughter, I'm sorry, I keep calling her his wife. I'm not giving her a name, but I'm stupid and I didn't write down the name, so I don't know it. I don't know her name. But after that happens, she does sell the house because she doesn't want to stay in the house where her husband was murdered. And also, people don't know who killed him. He never saw it. He got shot and the person left. So there was a rumor that it was someone in like E.s. Wibbs or something like that, but it was never proven and they never caught the person who murdered him. So, but she sells the house to Harrison Milton Williams and his wife, Fanny. That's just a funny name, Fanny. Also an old time name. Like I don't know anybody named Fanny anymore. I don't think I've ever met anybody named Fanny. Oh, this is so much history. I'm literally done. I'm almost done. Like I have to do my lower lash line and lipstick and I'm done. I need to get this show on the road. Let's go. Harrison and Fanny had 7 kids. The oldest was named Harry. And one night there was a storm in Louisiana, the property, and Harry was out trying to herd the cattle and get them inside when he fell into the river on the property and drowned. I know that just out of nowhere. And when that happens, Harrison and his wife Fanny also sell the property. And I should also say that in this time, so after William Winter's wife sells the property, she doesn't sell it right to Harrison. It gets sold through like 5 other people and stuff happens to them, so then they leave. And then Harrison and Fanny come onto the property. Just wanted to say that because I don't know if that's important or not. So after Harry dies, Harrison and Fanny sell the property. They can't live there on the property where their son died. I don't blame them. So they sell it to another one of their sons, and his name is Surrogate. So Surrogate lives on the property with his wife. So they live there, and I'm not sure why they move. I don't think there really is a reason. But eventually, Surrogate, his wife, and sister, they do move, and they sell the property to wealthy chicken farmers. And then the wealthy chicken farmers, they own the property up until just, I don't even know when. I want to say it was like the 90s, 80s, 90s, when now the current owners bought it, and presently, Myrtles Plantation is a bed and breakfast. Okay, I'm watching Scooby-Doo, so if you can hear that, sorry. But real quick, I just wanted to say before I get into like the haunting and everything, I wanted to show you a picture of Myrtles Plantation. So that's what this is. So we're finally done with the history. Like I said, a lot of history in this place, and we are now getting into the hauntings. So Myrtles Plantation is considered to be one of the most haunted houses in America. It has been featured on many shows. The most notable ones were Unsolved Mysteries back when it was like, it's not the Netflix one, and I don't think, because it's been, Unsolved Mysteries had like its original run, it had its original run, got canceled, had a second run, got canceled again, and then Netflix picked it up. And this one, I believe, was from its second run. But yeah, it was on Unsolved Mysteries. It has been on Ghost Hunters. It was on Ghost Adventures. And it was featured in Travel Channel's Halloween special, Most Terrifying Places in America. So if that doesn't tell you something about this place, I don't know what does. So some of the most notable things that happen at Myrtles Plantation: handprints will appear on freshly cleaned mirrors, and there's one mirror in particular that we will talk about later on, but it happens to all mirrors in the property, but especially this one mirror. It'll just all of a sudden, just a handprint will appear, and there is, like I said, we'll just talk about that later, but we'll get into the mirror thing in a second. Footsteps are also heard throughout the property. They're heard on staircases, especially on the staircase where William Winters allegedly died. People hear footsteps there throughout the night all the time. Weird smells and vanishing objects are also very common. So when I say vanishing objects, I mean like someone will set down like I don't know, they'll set down a makeup brush, right? And then they'll go into like the bathroom to get something, and when they come back, the makeup brush will be gone, only for it to appear hours later in a completely different place of the room. So vanishing objects like that. Myrtles Plantation is supposedly haunted by 12 different spirits. 12! It's rumored to have had 10 murders at least on the property. So other things that happen on the property, people will hear random gunfire at night, but it's not like someone's shooting a gun. It's like there's no gun, no bullets or anything, but you'll just hear the sound of a gun being fired just randomly. And people also hear screams, which that is the most terrifying thing in my opinion. They'll just hear random screams in empty rooms and in the yard where Chloe was hung. That's the scariest thing in my opinion. Screams and laughs. Okay, should I talk about the mirror now? I'm gonna talk about the kids, because there are a lot of alleged sightings of children being seen throughout Myrtles Plantation. So a lot of people, they have this game room, which is like a billiard room where they have like pool, stuff like that. They call it the game room now. And a lot of people have alleged seeing little girls floating in that room. So not walking, but floating in that room. People have also seen kids running up and down the hallways and outside of Myrtles Plantation. They hear laughter, like children's laughter, in empty rooms, and they have seen these children chasing each other. So it looks like just normal kids playing and chasing each other and having a good time. One visitor was at Myrtles Plantation, and she saw these kids playing, so she decided she was going to chase after them. Oh, that looks good. Okay. So one visitor decided she was going to follow these kids when she saw them. So she saw them running, she followed them upstairs, and then she heard giggling in her room. I thought I heard footsteps, but it wasn't. It was just like the house, like wind hitting the house, but it just freaked me out. Anyway, she heard giggling in her room, and when she went in there, there was no one there. And then from behind her, oh my God, I hate it. From behind her, she heard a little kid's voice say, "We're hiding." I don't like it at all. Something else that happened while Myrtles Plantation was still a house, three Union soldiers broke in and ransacked the place, and the owners at the time shot and killed all three of them. So allegedly now there is a blood stain on the floor that only appears sometimes. It's not there all the time, but you cannot clean it up. It will not get cleaned up. You can scrub, whatever, it will not go away. And on top of that, some people have even said that like they can't get their brooms or their mops or something to go over that spot, which to me just sounds like a reason not to clean the room. But I'm not them, so I don't know. Fanny's brothers, remember Harrison and Fanny? Fanny's brother also lived on the property with them for a short period of time, and he was murdered in a robbery on the property. And people say that sometimes in the room where he was murdered, they can hear a man whisper, "No, stop," or "Please don't." I'm like getting scared. I don't, like this is why I was scared to talk about this, because this is scary. This place is terrifying. So I'll talk about the mirror. I'm gonna throw up a picture of the mirror now. So that's the mirror. That's the mirror that people will clean that mirror and a handprint will appear on the mirror. And they cannot get that handprint off. They will scrub, they will wipe, anything. They cannot get this handprint. Oh, that's my chair. Oh my God. They cannot get this handprint off of this mirror. On top of that, people who look in this mirror have reported seeing, I'm trying to find it because I don't want to get it wrong. They have reported seeing a woman or two girls or all three standing like in the mirror, like they're inside of it looking back at you. And they're either seen just standing there staring at you or huddled in like the corner of the mirror crying. There's also a doll that is in front of the mirror, and the doll is porcelain, and there was never like anything wrong. Only one thing has ever happened with this doll. This guest was taking pictures, whatever, and then I think it was he went to his room, was looking over the pictures, and he saw one picture of the doll. Its eyes were open, it was normal. The next picture, the eyes were closed. which wouldn't be freaky if this doll wasn't a porcelain doll and its eyes weren't painted on. The eyes are painted on. How are they closing? And I saw the picture. It's actually in a YouTube video by Brennan Taylor. It's like staying at the most haunted hotel in America. I don't know. But that's where you can see the picture at. They show it in that. So there's also rumors of a young girl who died on the property in 1868. A lot of like children die. And again, I didn't even talk about all of it. But there's a rumor of a young girl who died in the property in 1868. And she died after being treated by a voodoo practitioner. So it's said that she still haunts that room. People have woken up to see her standing in the room. And it's also said they have woken up to hear someone like speaking, pretty much practicing voodoo on people as they sleep in that room. Child, this is so scary. People have also seen a ghost of a man or a spirit of a man walk, stagger, or crawl up the same staircase that William Winters is supposedly said to have died on. And once he gets to the 17th step, can't talk. Once he gets to the 17th step, he stops and then disappears. And it's said that is William Winters. I hate this. Okay. The most well-known and the most active spirit is of Chloe herself. Like I said, she's the most active. That's who people see the most, and there are so many more stories of her. The most famous account of Chloe, though, is the photograph that was taken of her in between two buildings on Myrtles Plantation. I'm going to throw the picture up now. I'm going to throw up like 2 or 3 versions of the picture so you can see it in its full. Go ahead and pause it. You can also look it up. Just type in Myrtles Plantation Chloe and it'll pop up. I'll throw it up now. That is like the most famous picture of Chloe, the most famous encounter. It was so famous, in fact, that Myrtles Plantation put that as their postcard. So you could send that to people, be like, hey, I'm at Myrtles Plantation, and it's this picture of Chloe. And that was so famous that they sent it, now let me read this, I don't want to get it wrong. They sent this photo to Society of Cyclical Research in England. Now, this society is the most prestigious paranormal research facility in the whole world. They handle the really important things, and their job is to pretty much debunk stuff. So this gets sent to them. They do a bunch of tests on it. They mess with like the picture, they do a bunch of tests, and it comes back that the photo had not been tampered with whatsoever at all. They also say that the figure in the picture is the same height and like age and everything of that Chloe would have been when she passed away. She's also seen with her green turban on because she passed away with that on. And it says that she will stare at you while you sleep. Ooh, and a lot of people have woken up and seen her, and they say that she's holding a candle. And the candle is like hitting her face, like it's illuminating her, like it's a real person. However, you can still see through her into the room behind you. I'm like, I don't want to keep talking about this. I'm almost done. And the last thing about Chloe is that she's usually seen wandering the grounds at night, and she is followed by the sounds of screaming and crying children. Child, am I almost done? No, I'm not. Okay. People also report there is a grand piano that is in I think it was the lobby. It's in one of the rooms of the hotel. And it is said to play by itself. And it only plays one key, just over and over and over again. And it's happened at one point where someone went in to see what was going on. When they went into the room, it stopped. And there was no one in the room. The sound stopped. And then as they left, it started up again. Kind of like a, ha-ha, you can't see me. Yeah. There's also another, so allegedly when this was like a house, a person in this room had to have both of their legs amputated. I don't know why, I didn't look it up, I didn't see all that, but they allegedly had to have their legs amputated. And it's said that people who stay in this room and lay in this bed feel like someone is tugging on their legs at night. I hate that so much. Oh, I'm not done with Chloe. Something else that is said that they have attributed this to Chloe, but they don't know if it is actually her, is that she will tuck you into bed at night. So a lot of people will purposely like go to bed with the sheets untucked, and when they wake up, it'll be like tucked like underneath and like snug as a bug in a rug, like tucked underneath them from their chin all the way down to their legs. That allegedly happens, and they just kind of, they don't know if it is Chloe, but they've kind of just said that it is her. Something else about Chloe is that this just happened recently too. A group of women went to Myrtles Plantation to just, spend the night, have a little paranormal hunt of their own, whatever. And before they left, they took a selfie. And I'm going to throw up the selfie now. In the selfie, you see this group of women, and then behind them, in the mirror, is the face of an African American woman with what to me looks like a turban on. This face is a face. I mean, it is clear as day, a face of an African American woman. It gave me the chills when I saw it. I hate looking at the picture. I'm going to put it up. Look at your own risk, but I'm going to put it up. Here it is for you. Okay, and that is all. I think that's it for Chloe. But that's not all. There is also a ghost of a Native American woman who has been seen around the property. She's described as nude and busty, and she just kind of wanders around and walks around. And that might sound odd, and you're probably like, well, Chase, that's like a wild card. There's all of this, and then all of it, there's just a Native American woman. That's odd. It's not, though. This is why I think that there has been so much tragedy and death on the property. And all of that, all the death and the tragedy combines into this haunting. But on top of that, I think this haunting is also because Myrtles Plantation is believed to be built on top of an ancient tunica. It's an ancient Indian burial ground. And I believe the tribe was Tunica, I believe is how you pronounce it. Which makes sense as to why there was so much death and tragedy and now so much paranormal activity. That makes sense to me. And that's it. Girl, I didn't think I was going to get through that. This is the final look. I really like it. It turned out more like purple, like periwinkle than blue, but I like it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and comment down below. This place was terrifying. This was scary to talk about, research, all of it. Give a like, give a comment, subscribe if you aren't subscribed already, and share the video so everyone can get scared of Myrtles Plantation. I love you guys for watching. This is just the first episode of season 2. I have so many more haunted, scary places to share with you. I can't wait for you to hear some of them, and I can't wait to research some of them. I love you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Mwah. Bye, guys.